Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, let me tell you about the latest special from Mike Lindell at MyPillow. The standard MyPillow, normally $49.98 for a limited time only, just $14.88 with promo code Joey. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener specials, and see all the specials. There's a limited quantity of just 10 at this special price. That's $14.88 with promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. The Trump administration's incoming border czar, Tom Homan, provided more specifics about the role the military will play in the anticipated mass deportations of illegal immigrants. And on Capitol Hill yesterday, the FEMA Director, Deanne Criswell, acknowledged that federal disaster relief workers intentionally skipped over 20 homes in Florida who had Donald Trump campaign signs in their front yard, calling it an unacceptable violation of FEMA's mission. House Speaker Mike Johnson dodged a question during a press conference about whether newly elected transgender Representative Sarah McBride is a man or a woman. This was in response to South Carolina Representative Nancy Mace filing a resolution forbidding men from using women's restrooms in the U.S. Capitol. In a recent interview with CBS's Tracy Smith, former President Bill Clinton weighed in on Vice President Kamala Harris's loss to President-elect Donald Trump, hinting that the country might not yet be ready for a female president, or at least a Democrat female president. Los Angeles city leaders voted unanimously to adopt a formal sanctuary city ordinance, joining other major cities across the country who are vowing not to assist the new Trump administration's mass deportation program.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but you know they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Tom Homan, the incoming border czar, provided more specifics about just how the military will be used in the anticipated mass deportation of illegals. A key promise from President-elect Donald Trump. Homan clarified that the military's involvement would remain within the bounds of the law, focusing on logistical and administrative support rather than direct enforcement actions. Homan emphasized that active duty troops would not arrest individuals on U.S. streets, as such actions would violate the 1878 Posse Act, which limits the use of the military for domestic law enforcement. Instead, their role would include things like transportation assistance. They would manage ground and air transportation for deportation operations. They would build temporary facilities, including detention spaces or processing centers. And they would free up operational efficiency type things. Agents like the ICE agents to return to active field work by taking over administrative duties that are currently being performed by ICE personnel. By reallocating ICE resources, Homan argued that the agency could concentrate on apprehending public safety threats and other priority targets. This all, of course, in response to the outrage from the Democrats since Donald Trump won a mandate a couple of weeks ago, and the American people were very clear that they agree with his mass deportation program. Democrats and other cities, we had Los Angeles, which we'll talk about in a minute, passing a new resolution saying that they will be a sanctuary city. They will not cooperate. We've seen other blue cities doing the same. Homan, of course, criticized the sanctuary city policies, which will limit local cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. He warned that these policies might actually inadvertently increase the number of deportations. ICE agents entering communities to apprehend a specific individual might encounter others who are undocumented, leading to additional arrests, he said. Sanctuary city leaders risk potential legal consequences for obstructing federal law enforcement, which Homan described as tantamount to harboring illegal aliens, which is a felony offense. It is going to be quite interesting to see how this happens, because I've got a feeling there are a lot of law enforcement officers. And look, if you're in law enforcement, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your take on this. You can text me. You can email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. If you've got a Democrat mayor, and again, let's use Los Angeles, because they just passed a resolution overwhelmingly saying that they will be a sanctuary city. So let's say you are a police officer in Los Angeles, and you have sworn to protect and defend. You have sworn to uphold the law. And our law says, our federal law says that these people can't be in our country, undocumented. And then you have a federal ICE agent who asks your assistance to detain a criminal who's in the country illegally. I got a feeling that's going to be put these police officers in a tough situation, because I assume that they want to enforce the law. They don't want to get involved in the politics of their mayor being a Democrat mayor and wanting to just be obstinate to or to object to Donald Trump and his administration just because they don't like Donald Trump. Now, Trump, of course, has vowed to declare a national emergency to address what he is calling the Biden invasion at the southern border. Homan, who serving as acting ICE director during Trump's first term, affirmed this approach as necessary to deal with the large number of undocumented immigrants who have entered the country during the Biden administration. They just made it worse. Some of the concerns, an estimated 60 to 70% of ICE agents are currently assigned to administrative duties rather than field operations. This is a situation which Homan said pretty much from day one he plans to address. Homan warned that deportations could lead to significant community tensions, especially in areas resistant to federal immigration policies. And he also talked about while deportation plans face resistance from sanctuary city leaders and civil rights organizations, Homan says that the administration intends to enforce immigration laws uniformly. Meanwhile, FEMA Director Deanne Criswell testified in front of Congress yesterday, acknowledging that federal disaster relief workers did, in fact, intentionally skip over 20 homes in Florida displaying Donald Trump campaign signs. She called it an unacceptable violation of FEMA's mission. The incident, of course, has raised concerns about political bias within federal agencies. We know it's there, and this was just a blatant example of it. Ms. Criswell confirmed that a part-time FEMA supervisor, her name is Marnie Washington. She is was the director of 11-member team, and instructed them to bypass homes that had Trump yard signs in them. Washington claimed that the decision aligned with FEMA's de-escalation policies, asserting that homes with Trump signs had previously led to confrontations with FEMA personnel. However, Director Criswell firmly rejected the rationale, emphasizing that FEMA workers are trained to handle hostile situations without discrimination. Ms. Washington was fired, and FEMA sent a special team to the affected homeowners to provide the assistance they were initially denied. Ms. Criswell stated that an investigation found no evidence suggesting broader systemic issues, though she's requested the agency's Inspector General to conduct a deeper probe. Now, I think it's probably a little optimistic to think that this lady, Miss Washington, was probably the only one in FEMA who felt that way. Maybe we just don't know about some of the others. Or maybe I'm just too cynical to think that she's the only one in the Biden-Harris administration who would do this. The revelations come at a critical time, of course, as the Biden administration is asking Congress for an additional $100 billion in disaster relief funding. It's fueled Republican allegations of a weaponized government targeting political opponents, which we know is there. We know that the Biden administration has done this in other instances as well. However, I must say that I hope Republicans in the Congress will not let this instance keep them from approving additional money, because there are people who need help still. We are a long, long way from recovery, even though it's been weeks and it's kind of out of our minds. Representative Jefferson Van Drews, Republican from New Jersey, described the situation as part of a troubling trend, he said. Representative Garrett Graves criticized FEMA's priorities, accusing the agency of mismanaging resources by allocating substantial funds for resettling illegal immigrants, while disaster survivors receive comparatively modest aid. Now, you could make the argument that we wouldn't need that additional $100 billion if FEMA had not squandered so much money pampering illegals. That's a whole other discussion, though. Graves highlighted discrepancies, claiming that FEMA provides $10,000 in assistance to illegal immigrants for resettlement, while American disaster survivors were limited to $750 in emergency cash. Now, Ms. Criswell disputed this characterization, explaining that U.S. citizens can qualify for up to $85,000 in various forms of disaster assistance. And I'm sure she's correct. I would say that it's probably a lot easier for the illegals to get their money than it has been for American citizens. The illegals don't have the red tape, the bureaucracy to go through. It's handed to them. Whereas Americans who lost their homes, who lost their businesses, and lost their communities have had a lot of bureaucratic red tape to get through. And I've had lots of emails. I've had lots of people tell me their stories. She says that they're going to refresh their training for all FEMA personnel and that they will work through this to make sure that FEMA does what they're supposed to be doing to carry out their mission of helping Americans. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. This year, I really thought I was going to have to boycott the holidays. I was going to lock myself away and not come out until 2025. But after finding PhD weight loss, you can bet I'll be at every holiday party I'm invited to. That's because PhD weight loss helped me take control with great confidence, support, and my new healthy body. The best part, PhD weight loss did it all without harmful drugs that keep you dependent on them to maintain your weight loss. It's a natural, medication-free approach to weight loss crafted to naturally diminish food-related thoughts, hunger, and cravings, making your weight loss journey more sustainable and enjoyable. Take it from me, I lost 33 pounds. The PhD weight loss program teaches you not just what to eat and when, but also how to think differently about food and finally let go of those cravings and get rid of the hunger naturally. Don't lock yourself away this holiday season. Call PhD Weight Loss today at 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900, or go to myphdweightloss.com. With the beating the Democrats received on November the 5th, one would think that they would have recognized by now that all the polls showing that immigration was an important issue for the American people turned out to be accurate. We're tired of our borders being open. We're tired of people coming into our country uninvited. But evidently, not all of the Democrats were able to comprehend that message. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus, led by Representative Nanette Diaz-Barragán, has announced that it's going to oppose President-elect Donald Trump's mass deportation plans, setting the stage for what could be a major political clash as the Trump administration prepares to implement its America First immigration policy. Representative Barragán argued that a large-scale deportation campaign would harm the U.S. economy and disrupt communities across the nation. Now, I don't know what she thinks has already happened with those groups, like some of the gangs that we're seeing popping up all around the country. How she doesn't think that that's not disrupting communities. Barragán is chairman of the all-Democrat Congressional Hispanic Caucus. She's emphasized that the potential economic consequences of mass deportation could hurt these local communities. She said it would have a negative impact on the U.S. economy overall. Now, I wonder what type of impact she thinks it has had on the economy with the fact that millions, if not billions of dollars is spent every year of our tax dollars supporting these illegals, putting them up in nice hotels, giving them free cell phones, giving them $5,000 on a debit card. Does that not hurt our economy? It certainly has not helped with inflation, has it? President Trump has pledged to carry out what he is describing as the largest deportation operation in our country's history. And yesterday, he made headlines again when he confirmed that he most likely is going to declare a state of emergency, allowing him to use the military to carry that operation out. He did this in a post on Truth Social, when Judicial Watch President Tom Fenton confirmed his intent, saying that that there was a rumor circulating that the president would very quickly within his administration declare a national emergency and elicit the support of the military. Trump or someone on his staff quickly posted true as a response on Tom Fenton's post. His plan, controversial to the left, of course, resonates, though, with a substantial portion of the voter base. An October Fox News poll just prior to the election showed that 67% of registered voters support the deportation of illegal immigrants. Now, this should show even the Democrats and even the Democrat Hispanic caucus that most Americans believe that something has to be done. And especially after the report that the Biden-Harris Department of Homeland Security released yesterday. Enforcement of our immigration laws is coming none too soon, according to this report, as the expansion of the Venezuelan prison gang known as Transgender, they are setting up shop across our nation as we speak. We know this because of this detailed report from the Department of Homeland Security. Again, the Biden-Harris Department of Homeland Security. The Venezuelan prison gang, they made its way spreading across 16 states so far that we know of. They're bringing a whole lot of trouble with it. The Homeland Security memo highlighted their growing presence, saying that new activity is popping up in places like Washington, D.C., Virginia, Wyoming, Montana. Originally, this group was formed in Venezuelan prisons. The gang has become a major player in organized crime there. Now they're decided that they're going to bring their business to the U.S. And using the recent influx of illegal immigrants at our southern border, these people who've been able to slip into our country because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris has been very quick to look the other way. They have a lot of support here. And without a solid way to track or deport them back to Venezuela, since the U.S. and Venezuela aren't really on great terms right now, TDA members are taking full advantage of the situation. They have a huge reach, according to this memo. They've been spotted in big states like California, Florida, Texas, in New York in a big way, but they're also places that you wouldn't expect, like Wyoming. In Tennessee, cities like Nashville, Memphis, they're running human trafficking operations. Even in North Carolina, they're setting up shop in some of the most unlikely places. Virginia, for example, they're targeting the D.C. suburbs for robberies and fraud schemes. These are bad guys. And they're here because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris allowed them to come in. And now they have allowed, over the last few years, they've allowed millions of people to come in to help them. There's all types of examples of some of the crimes that they've committed. For example, a guy, part of the gang in Florida, pulled off a $118,000 bank scam, wired the money back to Venezuela before anybody even knew anything about it. They're involved in human and sex trafficking, especially in areas like Queens, New York, parts of Tennessee. They're smuggling weapons, supplying weapons to criminal networks, and even some of the migrant shelters. DHS also says that they're big in the drug trade, competing with the major cartels and often violently. These guys don't mind hurting people. So why is this a problem? Because there's no deportation agreement with Venezuela. It's almost impossible to send TDA members back once they're here. Local and federal law enforcement are left trying to handle this massive threat without a lot of backup. And they're going to keep spreading because it's not easy to shut them down. It may take the military to shut them down. So if you don't think that this is not an invasion of our country, then what exactly is your definition of invasion? Donald Trump cannot be sworn in fast enough. We have to get him back in the Oval Office and allow him to do what we have elected him to do. His idea of appointing Tom Homan as the border czar was probably one of his best choices because Homan will not play around with these guys. Homan will find a way to round these criminals up and send them back. If these criminal gangs are not stopped now, they're going to cause major problems or even more major problems across the country. More crime, more violence, and even more tension over immigration policy. Cities like New York, Tennessee, D.C., they're already feeling the heat. It's clear this isn't going to go away. And thank goodness Donald Trump is going back to the Oval Office. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. Interesting conversation former President Bill Clinton recently had. He was being interviewed by CBS's Tracy Smith, and he weighed in on Vice President Kamala Harris's loss to President Donald Trump, hinting that the country might not yet be ready for a female president, he said. Clinton even suggested that a Republican woman might have a better shot at breaking that glass ceiling. When asked directly if America isn't ready for a woman president, Clinton responded, maybe, saying that he thinks in some ways we moved to the right as a reaction to all the turmoil. And Clinton suggested that if his wife Hillary had been nominated in 2008, she would have walked in just like Obama did. Here's the exchange.
I think part of the issue is that America is just not ready for a female president?
Maybe. I think in some ways we've moved to the right as a reaction to all the turmoil. I think if Hillary had been nominated in 2008, she would have walked in just like Obama did.
Has the country changed?
Well, I think all these cultural battles we're fighting make it harder in some ways for a woman to win.
So you think it has more to do with party than gender?
No. Although I think it would probably be easier for a conservative Republican woman to win
than a Democrat woman.
Because, that's what Maggie Thatcher did. But I still think we'll have a female president pretty soon.
You do?
I do.
How soon? Within your lifetime?
Well, yeah. Well, I don't know how long I'm going to live. You're asking an old man that question.
Well, of course he doesn't know how much longer he's going to live. None of us do. Clinton pointed to the nation's current cultural and political divide as a factor in making it harder for a woman to succeed on the presidential stage. Pressed on whether party affiliation mattered more than gender, you heard him say that no, but he added it's probably going to be easier for a conservative Republican woman to win, and he referenced Margaret Thatcher as an example, expressing optimism that the U.S. will have a female president pretty soon. Do you think he's right? Do you think that a Republican woman would have a better chance? I probably agree with him to an extent. I'm not sure that it's as much ideological as it is. They just had the wrong woman. They've had the wrong woman twice, because Hillary certainly wasn't the one, nor was Kamala Harris. Actually, Hillary Clinton was a better candidate than Kamala Harris would ever dream to be. But I do think he's right, too, that the Democrat Party has gone so far to the left. They're so out of touch with the American people that it's going to be different to have a woman, to have that first woman. And he's probably right. A conservative Republican woman might have a better chance. I'm not sure who that woman is. Some people are already saying, well, it's Nikki Haley. I don't think so. We'll see. Clinton's new book, and this was the reason he was being interviewed on CBS, is titled Citizen, and it touches on a range of topics, including his infamous affair with Monica Lewinsky. When asked why he chose to revisit this scandal in his book, He said, because I thought I needed to say something about it, and I wanted to be as helpful as I could to let her turn the page. Look, I would say, Mr. Clinton, I bet Monica Lewinsky turned the page a long time ago. That's been a long time, and certainly I don't think she's waited on you to give her permission to turn the page. The former president shared his hopes for Lewinsky, saying that she deserves a life that is about her and the future. And he praised her work, or her advocacy work, against bullying. Clinton campaigned for Harris in the final days of the election, even appeared alongside President Biden before he exited the race. He expressed deep disappointment over Trump's return to the White House, calling it a travesty. As Harris's defeat continues to spark debates among gender, politics, culture, Clinton's remarks highlight the complex challenges that women have becoming, winning the top political position in our country. House Speaker Mike Johnson dodged a question yesterday during a press conference about whether newly elected transgender Representative Sarah McBride is a man or a woman. Instead, the speaker emphasized the importance of treating everyone with dignity and respect, he said. He acknowledged concerns about restroom and locker room use, saying that Congress has never had to address this before, but promised to handle it carefully with consensus among members. He said, "We will accommodate the needs of every single person."
Speaker, is freshman-elect Sarah McBride a man or a woman?
Look, I'm not going to get into this. We welcome all new members with open arms who are duly elected representatives of people. I believe it's a command. We treat all persons with dignity and respect. We will. And I'm not going to engage in silly debates about this. There's a concern about uses of restroom facilities and locker rooms and all that. This is an issue that Congress has never had to address before. We're going to do that in deliberate fashion with member consensus on it. And we will accommodate the needs of every single person.
Mr. Speaker.
Do you plan on bringing Nancy Mace's transgender bill and putting that into the rules package?
I'm not going to address the plans on any of that. I just told you what I'm going to say about the issue. I'm not going to engage in this. We don't look down upon anyone. We treat everybody with dignity and respect. That's a principle that I've pursued my whole life. And we will take care of this, issue of first impression for Congress, and we will any other thing. We'll provide appropriate accommodation for every member of Congress.
I'm not sure that was the right response for that, because it was almost as if he was obviously trying to walk the fine line there. As you heard, a follow-up question there asked if the speaker planned to consider the resolution from Representative Nancy Mace that would ban transgender women from using women's restrooms in the Capitol. He wouldn't commit. I would think that the speaker should have said, we are going to protect the biological females in this building, and particularly in the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, I know he's trying to avoid any controversy here so soon before they even really get into session, before they're sworn in next January. But this is an issue that's going to have to be faced. I talked with you yesterday, I think it was, about Nancy Mace's resolution, which argues that allowing transgender women to use women's facilities jeopardizes the safety and dignity of biological women in Congress. In a video she posted on X, Mace defended her position, framing it as a feminist advocacy. She said, if being a feminist makes me an extremist or bigot or a monster, I'm totally here for it.
The radical left is calling me an extremist for being a feminist, fighting to protect the rights of women and girls. If being a feminist makes me an extremist or a bigot or a monster, I am totally here for it, because I'm going to fight like hell for every woman and every little girl across this country to protect you and keep you safe.
It was a little noisy because you could tell that she was walking in one of the tunnels between the House office buildings. She then posted another video of herself at a women's restroom in the Capitol building there, and she had handmade a sign that said biological, and she taped it above the sign that said women, so that it would say biological women. So what started this? Representative Sarah McBride. She's the first openly transgender member of Congress, or he is the most openly, or the first openly transgender member of Congress. It gets so confusing. Sarah McBride is actually probably Steve McBride. Sarah McBride was a male, was born a male. She's a biological male. He's a biological male. See what I'm saying? It's confusing. Of course, criticized the resolution on X, calling it a blatant attempt from the far right-wing extremists to distract from the fact that they have no real solutions to what Americans are facing. McBride also expressed hope that members of Congress could model the same respect and kindness that Americans display in workplaces every day. You see, this is another example of a Democrat being so far out of the loop of what the average American believes. Because I don't think the average American wants men going into women's restrooms. Now, I know this has been an ongoing debate for years now, since some of the first ones tried to make their point. And all this man is trying to do is to make a point as well. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene doubled down, arguing that biological men should be banned from female spaces and accusing Democrats of pushing trans ideology on Americans. Greene called for even stricter measures than Representative Mace's resolution, framing the issue as a part of a broader mandate from voters. Meanwhile, Representative Robert Garcia offered a somewhat different perspective, calling the resolution disgusting. He voiced strong support for Mr. McBride, saying he just got to Congress. Actually, he said she is going to use whatever restroom she needs to use. It's sick that even having this conversation. The issue highlights this sharp divide that we've seen in schools, we've seen on sports teams. Now we're seeing it in the U.S. House of Representatives. It'll be interesting to see how they deal with the situation, if they will protect their own women. And I got a feeling that Marjorie Taylor Greene and Nancy Mace are going to be two to deal with. I don't think they're going to just roll over on this one. I think they're going to push hard to protect the biological women in the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. We'll see. Whether you're replacing a broken appliance or maybe you're just upgrading, you're totally remodeling the kitchen, when it's time to get those new appliances, when you're ready for them, you don't want to have to wait weeks or even months to get started using them, right? Well, that's not the case when you shop with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. With over 11,000 square feet and 1,500 appliances at any given time, you can buy today and use today quite often. I'm talking about shopping with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens. It's worth the short drive over to Pickens. Jeff, Johnny, Kyle, the whole team over there, they'll take good care of you. They have an award-winning service department, expert installation, extended warranties, and at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they treat you like family. You're more than just a credit card swipe to all the team over there. Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they're proud to offer Speed Queen, the only washer and dryers with manufacturer's warranties that cover parts and labor. You owe it to yourself, if you're looking for a new appliance, to head over to Pickens to Discounted Appliance Warehouse online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Although he plans to dismantle the U.S. Department of Education, President Trump announced yesterday that he will be appointing Linda McMahon, former administrator of the Small Business Administration, to be the United States Secretary of Education. He said in his statement, for the past 4 years as chair of the board at the American First Policy Institute, Linda has been a fierce advocate for parents' rights, working hard at both AFPI and America First Works to achieve universal school choice in 12 states, giving children the opportunity to receive an excellent education regardless of zip code or income. As Secretary of Education, Linda will fight tirelessly to expand choice to every state in America and empower parents to make the best education decisions for their families. And I think she'll be an excellent one, too, to potentially dismantle the Department of Education. On our text line, Sherry writes, "Hey, Joey. Sherry in Georgia, do you have an update on Dennis Prager?" Well, not really. All I can say is that Dennis Prager, and if you haven't heard, my Salem media colleague, Dennis Prager, fell last week in his home and was severely injured. He had surgery. He's still in the hospital, and we all just need to pray for a full recovery for Dennis. This is not going to be something that's going to happen quickly. He has quite the road ahead of him as far as recovery. So our prayers for Dennis and his wife, Sue, and for his entire staff, Alan, Estrin, and Sean, and all of them who are part of the Dennis Prager Show. Brent from Royston, Georgia says, "Thank you for all you do. I love your show." Well, thank you, Brent. Appreciate that. Always appreciate kudos like that. Appreciate you listening in Royston, Georgia. Ace says, "Those mayors need to be arrested if they stand in the way. Anyone who tries to hide or protect the illegal immigrants need to be arrested. This is why Mexico is a mess. The crime lords rule the roost. This is what they expect to turn America into. And if we sit back and let them, they will." You're so right, Ace. Mr. Thomas in Morganton, North Carolina says, "What a waste of time, such an embarrassment for America that we're arguing over where a mentally ill person is going to use the bathroom in a government building." You're right. We shouldn't be arguing over this, but unfortunately, that's the time that we're living in. We have a man who wears women's clothes elected to the U.S. Congress. Now he's going to want to use the women's restrooms. I just hope that he doesn't walk in on Nancy Mace or Marjorie Taylor Greene. Paul writes, "Deporting? ? I'm not going to win the argument. I'm all for deporting the criminals immediately, then their families can be allowed to follow. I'm torn about deportations of law-abiding citizens or corralling them for later action. I'm afraid we may see the corral used on citizens who don't have the correct policies. Sounds like re-education camps discussed years ago." So, Paul, I'm not sure if I understand. Are you in favor of deporting the illegals who are criminals? Or are you saying that just because they entered the country illegally doesn't mean they should be returned? You can text me, email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. Texter says, "Joey, I hear you. The people you're talking about are not undocumented immigrants who need a little extra help. These are international criminals who commit felonies everywhere they go. They deserve extreme attention from law enforcement." Extra attention from law enforcement. Well, I think they're going to get that attention come January. Appreciate your comment. Texter says, "Joey, I think if international criminals leave a trail of bodies wherever they go, we don't want them loose on our streets." That's what I can't understand with these Democrats who are defending these people. I mean, just like I was talking about with these gangs, these criminal gangs from Venezuela and these other countries who are in our country wreaking havoc. And you don't want them returned to their country of origin? Texter says, "South Carolina is not as conservative as I want it to be. School choice, closed Republican primaries, no property tax, stop sexualizing children in public schools, term limits for politicians." These are all things that we need to just insist on. And I agree. And maybe with, and I had Representative John McCravey on yesterday, and we talked about the fact that we have a supermajority in both the state House and the state Senate now in South Carolina, and maybe they can get some of these things done. I mean, he certainly is wanting to at least not have senior citizens paying property taxes. He's certainly for school choice. Not sure about term limits. I'll have to ask him next time we talk. Texter, "Just need a wire? Really? Any generator that is not in use has to be maintained, which would include periodic operation. I like the view on property tax, though. That was dead on." Oh, I think you're talking about my conversation with Representative John McCravey yesterday when he talked about one of the things that they want to propose is to have some of these large chain convenience stores to be wired so that they can easily get a rental generator, for example, so that they can always have access to pumping the gasoline out of the ground into your car in an emergency situation. Because after Hurricane Helene came through and there were so many areas without electricity, a lot of service stations, they had plenty of fuel, they just couldn't pump it because they didn't have electricity, just like you and I didn't at our homes. So what Representative McCravey was saying is that it would be required for these type stores to be wired for a generator, which would allow them to go out and rent one temporarily. They're not saying they're going to require them to always have a generator, but to be able to use one when needed. Texter says the Biden administration has no problem using North Carolina and South Carolina emergency relief money for illegal aliens' luxurious entry into our nation. So President Trump should start deporting them. No free rides home without justice being served. Texter's asking me about I mentioned earlier about Los Angeles being a sanctuary city. Yes, Los Angeles, just this week, Los Angeles city leaders voted unanimously to adopt a formal sanctuary city ordinance solidifying its position against aiding federal immigration enforcement just weeks after Donald Trump was overwhelmingly elected president. It was a 13-0 vote. It ensures that Los Angeles will not allocate city resources or personnel to assist federal agencies in enforcing immigration laws. Mayor Karen Bass and City Attorney Heidi Philstein Soto worked on drafting the ordinance with input from immigrant advocacy groups. Now, that's where you made the mistake there. Why would you have the fox writing the rule for the henhouse? California has been a sanctuary state since 2017. This is the first time, though, that Los Angeles has formally codified its sanctuary city policies. And we're going to see this probably in some of these other big cities, too, that haven't already done it. I mean, you have some like Chicago and Boston and New York that have been sanctuary cities for years. We're going to see more of this, though, because they're doing it. They're trying to get it done before Donald Trump can be sworn in January. According to the Los Angeles Times, the ordinance follows years of informal practices by the Los Angeles Police Department and city officials, such as not inquiring about immigration status or participating in federal immigration enforcement. The LAPD's new chief, Jim McDonald, affirmed that the department will continue to stay out of immigration matters. That kind of answers my question earlier in the show when I talked about I think it would be hard for law enforcement officers to not enforce the law. I guess Chief McDonald doesn't care to enforce the law. That'd be a little bit scary to have your chief of police have that type of attitude, wouldn't it? That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.